I play curling like I play any other sport. I play football in my summer, I play baseball, and I play with as much intensity and desire as I can. And
Hi, and welcome to The Curling Show, the podcast that brings you interviews with the sport's top athletes and the people who shape the game. I'm Dean Gemmel, and before we get started, my apologies for a technical glitch in our last interview, glitch being a very technical term that cut off the last few minutes of the conversation with Kelly Middlestat. The problem is now fixed, although probably too late for people who subscribe. Now on to this hopefully glitch-free edition. A conversation with a tour curler who plays hard and speaks honestly. Fresh from a win at the Flint Energy Classic and enjoying a weekend off, John Morris, good to have you back on The Curling Show.
Thanks, Dean. Good to be back.
Let's talk about your start, an unusually sluggish one for Team Kevin Martin. Is relief a way to describe your win in Bonnyville?
Well, it's funny. You know, last year we came out of the starting blocks really hot. We won, I think, the first three spiels we were in, and we almost exceeded our own expectations last year. I've never won, I don't think, three spiels in a row in my life, and all of a sudden we start off the year like that. So, and we had a very successful year, I found. Last year we had obviously a tough Brier, but we won a lot of events on tour, and it just, you know, our expectations for ourselves going into this year were very high, as I'm sure were a lot of other teams of us, and we just seemed to, you know, we didn't come out as hot as last year. A couple of us were struggling early in the year, and we were able to battle back this weekend and get back onto a winning note. So, yeah, you just have to sort of keep everything in perspective and keep your common goals in sight, and you know, not let that stuff get to you.
Good advice for teams at the start of the year. You know, you guys did lose that A final to Jeff Stoughton at the Price Waterhouse Coopers West Coast Curling Classic, and then you lost two more after that. Is that the first time your team's ever lost three in a row?
I would say in our team's existence, that's the most we've struggled in an event. We just we played a good game against Jeff and had a tough shot for the win, but we're unable to come up with that one, and then we just sort of continued on a bit of a downward spiral. But I think that, you know, for a team to develop, you have to go through periods where you're successful and also periods where you're not successful, and that's where you really learn how to, you know, right the wrongs and develop as a team. So the biggest thing from that is we tried to take from it as much as we could and fix that for the following weekend in Gander, which we did to a certain extent. And we seem to have ironed out most of the kinks by the time we were in Bonnyville this weekend, which was a good thing.
It seemed to me the ice in New Westminster might be described as challenging as well.
Well, I know that Dave Merklinger was the ice maker there in the past, and this year his protege was doing the ice, and it wasn't, really bad ice. It was just a little tricky. There was a couple of runs, and I found, you know, I don't know if it was early in the season or had to do with the rocks or the ice, but you'd throw run backs and, you know, you're halfway down the ice, you're sort of guessing on what's going to happen. And, you know, it curled a couple of feet, and obviously I find that when teams win events, there's nothing wrong with the ice, and when teams lose other events, there's a million things wrong with the ice.
Good point.
Yeah, so obviously we're one of those teams that lost out of the event, and, yeah, it was a little bit trickier than it has been in the past, and maybe not as much curl, but, you know, everyone's playing on the same ice surface, so it's something we should have been able to get around.
Is it just me, or are we seeing maybe just a bit more parity early in the tour season? Not so much in who's winning events, but a bit more variety among the rinks that are qualifying.
Yeah, I think it's not. It might have been a little more.
Bonnyville, the spiel you just won went more according to the book, but other spiels not so much.
Yeah, you're seeing. I've definitely seen an improvement in Brad Gushu's fourth, and they've put in a strong start to the year, and Kevin Cooey. They're continuing to develop really well as a team. They're one of the top guns out there, and yeah, it looks right now as, you know, that rather than having one or two teams at the top, you have about five, which I think is good for the game.
You know, then you even see a team like Young Reed Carruthers sneaking in, and looks like they have the potential now to win a spiel with a tough field. Yeah, well, they impressed us last year. We played them in the Canada Cup final, in the playoffs last year in Canada Cup, and they were really. Really strong and motivated and enthusiastic team. And even a guy like Charlie Thomas, I saw him play for the first time in New West this year, and he looks like he can make a ton of shots. So I think there's some positive things out there going on tour, and as you said, there's going to be less and less teams at the very top and more spread out throughout the top 5 to 10. You talk about a young guy like Charlie Thomas. You're another guy who came out of junior and skipped right away and had success. How do you think he's going to fare getting used to men's events where he doesn't win as easily in junior?
Well, I think that's all part of the process. I think when I was younger and we'd won 2 World Junior Championships, our mentality was we want to take on all these big rinks like the Madaws and the Howards at the time, and at least see what we can do against them. And I was, we were pretty fearless when it came to these teams. And then they would knock us down and they would set us straight in most games. But you learn from that, and that's sort of how you get better. And the one good thing I see with Charlie's team is that a lot of times when you come out of juniors, your focus switches from curling to school or like university or careers. And with Charlie, they seem to be entering a lot of spiels, so they're going to get that much-needed experience that if you don't get it at a young level, it's hard to play catch-up down the road. So that's one really positive thing I see from them is that they're taking on all the big men's teams, and a couple of speed bumps along the way, losing to some teams is just part of the growing process. So yeah, I think that they're going to be successful over the years.
Hey, I had Jeff Stoughton on the show earlier in the year, and I talked to him about the tension between your two teams at last year's Brier. Yeah. After Steve Gould seemed to hint he might drop the gloves if he had to out in the ice. Jeff said it felt genuinely tense before the game. What was your take on it at the time?
Well, at the time, I was just a little surprised. Like Steve and I and Ryan, we're all good friends on that team, and the only thing that surprised me was the fact that I found it was a bit surprising how this was all like I've slid the same way, and I've always had the same delivery since I've been 6 years old. When I'm throwing a big weight takeout, I might leave my knees on the ice for a couple extra seconds after I shoot, and I've never heard anything about it. And every time I do it, I get up and I brush it away with my if whatever's on the ice with my broom. But for the first time in my life, I hear about this, and it's on a national stage with all this media around, and I just found it was very surprising, especially coming from my couple of my friends on tour. So I think it was more a bit of gamesmanship, probably by the Stoughton rink, in order to get in, maybe a bit into our heads. And that's at the top level. That type of thing happens. And it's funny because Steve and Ryan, Jeff couldn't make a spiel this year, and they gave me a ring to skip their squad in Stonewall this year. So obviously there's no hard feelings. Like we still sit down and have a beer after the games when we play them. I was just, the only thing about that whole situation, I was surprised the fact that it happened at a national level, and it was almost like a bit of a way to grab attention. But I know that by Steve saying that it might come to fisticuffs, I'm sure that wouldn't have been his intention, and he knows full well that if it ever came to fisticuffs, that he'd have his hands full with me. So, no, I'm just kidding. But
this was after you busted the broom over your leg.
No, yeah. Well, I guess that game actually, it's funny because I didn't break any brooms the entire year, and then we go to the Brier against, and it was just a tense week. Like we were pretty frustrated with the week because obviously you go in there trying to win the event, and then all of a sudden you're on the cusp of making the playoffs, and every team you're playing seems to be playing lights out against you, and things just aren't going the way they have been for the whole season. So it was just a frustrating week, and that's something usually I'm able to, at least lately, I've been able to control my emotions. But that time, it just got the better of me. And
I've got no issues with the broom thing. I thought it was, to be honest, quite exciting, and it was all over Sports Center and everything else. So I've got no problems with it.
Well, I've actually gotten mixed results because it seems a lot of traditional curlers out there think that curling being a gentleman's game, that definitely doesn't go with the flow when you're breaking brooms out there. And then I've heard from a lot of other just sports fans the fact that if this was, I play curling like I play any other sport. I play football in my summer, I play baseball, and I play with as much intensity and desire as I can, and with that, like if you see broken sticks in hockey all the time, and and people get upset and bang their stick over a crossbar in hockey, and that sort of goes with the territory. Same with football, and I'm an athlete at heart. I wouldn't, and when it comes to curling, I play it just like any other sport. So I think it's just something that curling has always been seen as a more of a different game than other sports. And when they see something like that happens, I think sometimes it rubs people the wrong way. And I didn't mean to offend anyone at all. I just sometimes I get pretty passionate about the sport I'm playing, and my emotions got the better of me that day. But
You know, my thing is it's only a problem if you're distraction to the other team or to other games, and that was quick and interesting in my mind. But anyways,
well, with breaking brooms, like you see people bang their brooms and break brooms on tour all the time, and the thing I have, my opinion on that is that if you miss a shot and you're frustrated with yourself, it's sort of human to release a little bit of that stress, whether it's if you're saying a bad word or or saying something under your breath or whatever. That's just a human response to if you're upset at yourself. And I don't mind when people do that. If they miss a shot and they need to somehow let out that stress, that's fine. It's when other people on your team miss a shot and you see people banging their brooms because someone else on the team. I don't agree with that at all,
right.
Because I find that really will affect and have a negative effect on team dynamics, and is not a very nice thing to do. But when
right.
it comes to your own play, if you're frustrated with your own play, you know what? Whatever you have to do to sort of release that frustration and stress, I don't really have a big issue with, and I'm sure if you ask any other team on tour there, that they don't really have a big issue with too. But you also have to keep in mind the sportsmanship aspect, and you don't want to have guys out there banging their brooms all the time. And I completely agree with that, and it's something that I've tried to control. In juniors, I definitely was a little bit worse at that than I am in men's, and that's something I've tried to been able to harbor a bit since I've moved into men's.
So you broke one broom all year, and you did it on TV.
Well, I was joking with Benny because Benny on our team breaks about 5 brooms a year, and I broke one, and then I was on national TV when it happened. So I'm the bad guy on the team. And
well, it was partly the way you did it. That was.
Yeah, well, it was. I've never broken a broom like that actually, but obviously that broom wasn't working that well that day, and we needed to find a new one. So rather than just put it in the broom bag, might as well just break her in half and give it to a fan.
Well, it's a good souvenir for somebody. Hey, John, the last time I spoke to you on this show was right after you decided to join forces with Kevin Martin. Now that you have one season under your belt and the start of this one in the books, is there anything about this new venture, this current venture, that has surprised you?
Well, to be honest with you, I didn't think that we'd be as successful in our first year together last year. We seem to, I think that's the most money we've ever won on tour. I think Kevin himself, or definitely myself, when I used to skip my old teams. But what surprised? Nothing really surprised me. I knew we all had the potential, and I really was looking forward to the new role. I was taking a third. Things seemed to just fall into place, and we seemed to, we got some breaks here and there, and we seemed to play well when we needed to. And the one thing that surprised me, I guess, out of the whole season was I was amazed how well the skipper played the first month or two of the Spiel. He wasn't missing anything, and he won us like 3-4 Spiels in a row, standing on his head on his own. So, nothing really surprised me. It just, obviously it would have been nice to have a bit of a better showing at the Brier there, and we're really gearing up for trying to get back there this year and having showing what we can do this time.
Hey, John, last time we talked, we also discussed how your team was approaching physical fitness with a new level of dedication. Last year, whether your team won or not, you guys were a threat in just about every event you played, whether it was earlier in the season or at the season-ending Players' Championship. Part of that, of course, is talent, but do you think the season-long consistency could be traced in part to the physical training?
Well, I think one of the biggest things that helped us last year is we trained very hard in the off-season, and we continue to train during the season to a certain extent, and I found that when it came to being deep in the event, in the quarterfinals, semifinals, finals, that type of thing, we felt almost as fresh during those games as we did, early on in the Spiel. And that was the biggest difference I found from years previous, is that, we're just, rather than feeling sluggish and sore and tired by the Sunday or the Monday of Spiels, we were fresher, and we were, so I think that obviously had an impact with our success. It's great to have 4 guys on the team that are very dedicated to fitness, and off-season training, because a lot of teams I've been on in the past, and I'm sure a lot of other teams out there, as soon as the curling season's done, priorities change, and you don't see each other till the September or the October of the following season. So to be able to continue to work at it and train in the off season towards next year's goal is pretty key, I find. And
so part of it just being around each other in the off season is helpful too.
Oh yeah, and like with us, we have a common goal of, as like a bunch of other teams out there, I'm sure, is to try to represent Canada at those 2010 Olympic Games. And we know that we just can't work hard that 1 year in 2009 and expect that that's going to get us there. You know, these next couple of years are a pretty big process for us in the development aspect. And, you know, we feel like we have to continue to get better every year. And we're all very motivated to stay in the gym in the off season and work together. And, you know, Benny and I are in Calgary. We're going to be training together in the off season. Mark and Kev train at a gym up in Edmonton where a bunch of the Oilers and NHL players train at. And it's just a good atmosphere. And it's if you want to be serious about your sport and, you know, make it to that next level and be potentially an Olympian or a world champion, or, you know, you have to do things like that that are going to separate you guys from the next couple of teams. And I'm sure there's teams out there that are doing the same things as us right now. But, you know, it's something that, you know, growing older, you realize that, you know, you're probably going to only play this game at a really high level for a certain amount of time. So rather than, you know, go in it half-assed and, you know, maybe win 50% of your games or 75% of your games, if you you know, do go in at full force and are 100% committed, then I think that gives you a much better chance at being as, you know, reaching those goals and being as successful as you can.
Yeah, you make a good point about other teams. I mean, you see a lot of, it doesn't seem like there are many unfit players competing well on tour these days. I'm sure there's some that are more fit than others. But, hey, finally, you're going to be at the Cactus Pheasant Classic in Brooks, Alberta on November 1st, an event that sort of came out of nowhere this year. Have you ever been to Brooks before?
I've gone there to fish before. It's been a great, they have a great lake up there. I fished that last couple summers, but...
I'm going to say, John, I looked on the website for Brooks, and there's a lot of photos of lakes and places, but not many people.
No, it's a pretty small, I think it's about 15,000, I would say, is the population, and it's known as the smelliest town in Alberta because there's a pig processing plant there. So for the first day that you're there, you almost feel like you need nose plugs because it's a pretty nasty smell.
Well, that's a great way to get spectators there now.
But after you get used to it, it's great. But,
once you get used to it, it's fine.
But it's I'm sure that they've put a lot of work into this event. They're bringing in Mark Schurig for the ice, and they have a bunch of great sponsors. And I think every big team on tour is coming there, and it's going to be a great event. Like they're bringing in, they're going to have great ice, obviously with Mark there. They've done everything right. They have I believe a triple knockout spiel, and it starts on the Thursday, ends on the Sunday, and it's already sold out. I talked to
really.
I talked to Kevin a couple days ago. He said it's already sold out. So, you know, and this is for the first year of the event, and this is weeks before it actually starts. So, it's a great town. It just has a bit of a bad odor to it. That's the only thing.
Well, good for them for overcoming that. They've got a great field, a great purse.
Yeah.
It's also where they filmed RV with Robin Williams and Jeff Daniels, by the way.
That's news to me.
Along with Unforgiven. Apparently, they filmed a lot. They filmed a few things there.
Oh, right on. Well.
So there you go. It's a little smelly, but it's good for filming, I guess.
And it's great for fishing if you like pike and walleye fishing up in Lake Newell there.
You've really become an outdoorsman there out in the West, haven't you, John?
Well, when you're that close to the mountains and you're surrounded by a bunch of lakes, that's one of the things I like to do in my free time. So.
All right, John, we end with the run back. As you know, I give you a topic. You give me an answer on it in 1 to 3 words, or your thoughts on it in 1 to 3 words. So we'll start with something we were just talking about, big game hunting.
A great video game by Cabela's.
So you play that and you chase the elk, do you?
I played that a long time ago, but yeah, we went for elk, and I saw a grizzly bear a couple of weeks ago in the mountains, and so that's another story in itself. So.
From Ottawa to big game hunter.
You betcha.
Good advice if I ever find myself about to be hit by a moving vehicle.
I'll protect your legs and jump as high as you can and roll.
So that's what you did. You actually saw it, jumped?
Saw it the last minute out of the corner of my eye and jumped. All I could think of was, geez, like I guess I didn't want my legs to get there, so I just jumped. It was just a reaction, and I smoked the windshield with my shoulder and my noggin. But after that, it seemed to be all right once I rolled off it.
Wow. The run through the field in London by Rachel Homan's junior team, a rink your father coaches.
Well, I know that I used to play with Mark Homan, and he has great curling game, and I know that his sister Rachel is a great shooter in herself, and I that doesn't surprise me. I know that I've seen her play, and I've heard from my dad how good they are, and I'm sure that you're going to hear a lot from them in years to come.
The extraordinary thing was, I mean, they beat Jennifer Jones twice. They beat Deb McCormick. They beat Julie Reddick. I mean, it was
well, the best thing I think about that Homan team is that they are a very aggressive team. And for a junior team, a women's team, that's not always that common. And she's just very aggressive and fun to play and fun to watch. So, it'd be interesting to see what they can do the rest of the year.
All right, John, I give everybody on the show a chance to name their sponsors before they go, so let me know who's behind you guys this season.
Well, this year we have H&R Block, Bruce Saville, who's been with us from the get-go, Wild Rose Pump and Compression, Fugro. We also have Walmart that's joined us this year, Gold Line and Air Sprint, and one other one that I'd just like to make a shout-out for is Sport Canada has really stepped up this year, and I guess in trying to get as many athletes and as many medal finishes at the next Olympics in Vancouver. So they've really stepped up this year and have supported a lot of the men's and women's curling teams in the nation. So just like to give kudos to them because they make it possible for a lot of, our team and a bunch of other teams out there to play in a lot more events on tour and give us access to a lot of other things that we usually don't have in the past. So
well, that's good to hear. Did you, Walmart, H&R Block in there? You got...
Yeah, we got Walmart is stepping on board. They actually have carry goal line equipment at Walmart, and we've signed on with Goal Line this year. And, so you'll see a lot of the stuff we use at local Walmarts.
At your Walmart? Come on, you're not seeing it all.
No, you betcha.
Hey, John, thanks for being on the show. It's always a pleasure to have you. Good luck the rest of the way. Good luck next weekend in Brooks.
You betcha, Dean. Thanks for having me, and have a great year, too. I know you guys are playing in the... plan on going in the U.S. playdown, so best luck with you guys, too.
All right, thanks, John. That's John Morris on The Curling Show. As always, thanks for listening. Now for Halloween, Black Pudding, and Full Moon Tonight.
Every day you blend into the crowd, but in the silence of night he's got to live it loud. Behold the sight of the full moon tonight, and you try